Hello and welcome to The Meeting Place. I'm your host, Jonathan Colleton, and this is UTSC's Student Life Podcast, where we talk to one student each week about their experiences at UTSC. This week's guest is Aidan Brown, one of the co-presidents of DECA, a student group that gets students engaged in business-related case studies to help them through their studies and prepare them for their career once their university education is finished. So take a listen to my interview with Aidan and connect with DECA at the social media accounts linked in the description below. Aidan, welcome to The Meeting Place. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Glad you wanted to participate, because now we have started this great rotation of just putting it out there on Instagram to people that, here's the new episode, who wants to be on the show? And we've been getting a good response. So it's great to see that club leaders like you want to participate in this type of initiative. So we'll get into the fact that you're a club leader on this campus at some point, but let's start off by talking about how you ended up at UTSC in the first place. So what's the story there?
Yeah, it is a bit of a story. I grew up in London, Ontario for pretty much my entire life. I started out in Newmarket, and when I was in high school in London, I was dead set for a long time on going to Ivy, actually, at Western, the Richard Ivy Business School.
Okay.
And that's just because I think I didn't know a lot of the alternatives that were out there and wasn't really aware in my earlier years of high school of everything else that was going on. And so when I actually started looking into universities and looking at what the different options were, University of Toronto was a consistent one that came up all the time, right? And believe it or not, it's one of the most popular and best universities in Canada, but I hadn't really heard much about it up until my last couple of years of high school. And
And
so,
I find that so interesting because it just
mhm,
depends on where you grew up, right? Like you grew up around another very popular large university, so you weren't thinking about U of T. And I grew up in Toronto, and I always knew about Western, but
mhm.
U of T was just here. So yeah,
Exactly, yeah, and Western's very big, right? Like, it has, I think, somewhere around 40, 50,000 undergraduate
yeah,
students.
very big school.
So it's still quite a big school, just like UofT. But my girlfriend, who's still my girlfriend now, actually, at the time was interested in going to UofT Scarborough for their management co-op program. And management is what I was initially interested in, right? And that's sort of what piqued my initial interest about UTSC, specifically because they have the co-op program with management, right? And that's how I
Hmm.
sort of started the process of looking into it, looking at what it offered, and then long story short, I ended up doing a university tour of UTSC after I had submitted all my applications and stuff on OUAC in my last year of university. I loved the campus, even though I was seeing it in the midst of winter when it was all gloomy outside and all of that stuff. I liked the smaller campus vibe. I think in comparison to Western, I don't know if you've ever seen it or been there. It's huge, right? It can
Yeah.
take you 45 minutes to walk across the whole campus to get from one end to the other. Whereas at UTSC, it's a 10-minute walk, right? Everything's so accessible. The community seems tighter knit. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just seemed like a good alternative. So I ended up just really liking the campus, really liking the people that I met, and the program seemed really, really good. And I sort of learned that the value of a UFT degree is sort of unmatched in Canada. You know what I mean?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and that's how I ended up accepting the application. Once I got an offer of acceptance from UFT, I ended up coming here for management co-op in my first year. That has since
So
switched, but
okay. Well, we'll get to that, I guess.
mhm,
But first, two things I want to say from that. So one
mhm,
is I actually had basically the same experience as you in a way. I did tour Western. That's where I thought I was going to go.
right,
But then I toured Wilfrid Laurier University, which is a very U of T, UTSC in particular, like
mhm,
atmosphere, small school, almost the same number of students at the time I went there. And it felt like a very community type vibe when I toured it. So I had the same experience as you had. I
mhm,
totally get it. And that was the thing that drove me instead to pick Laurier. So
mhm.
and the second thing I'll say is, what a great sales pitch for our admissions and recruitment department there. I hope
Yep,
they cut that clip out and use it when they're trying to tell prospective students why they should come to UTSC, because
yep,
that's really, come and tour the campus and you get to see how great it is and how good of a fit it's going to be for you. So
100%. Yeah,
I guess right now do a virtual tour, but we have
yeah,
options
exactly.
still. All right, so you pick UTSC, you pick management co-op,
Yep.
and I know that you told me you you did things like DECA in high school, and so you
Yes.
kind of jumped to that, I imagine, right when you got to UTSC as well.
Yeah, it was something that I was looking for throughout the summer leading up to coming here. I didn't actually know if they had a DECA club or not, but once
And
I
if you
actually
can you explain DECA for maybe people who aren't familiar with it? Because I also
yeah.
know it doesn't actually like it's not an acronym that stands for something, I don't think, is it?
It does technically stand for it stands for a couple different things historically. I think right now the meaning of it is demonstrating excellence, celebrating achievement, or if you're in the United States, it's Distributive Education Clubs of America. There's a couple
Okay.
different meanings for it, but they don't really have a lot to do with what DECA is all about. And coming back to that point, what DECA basically is, their motto is essentially preparing emerging leaders and entrepreneurs to be college and career ready. And so they have branches in both high school and university. And essentially, what it takes the shape of is a business focused case competition. But it's different from other competitions wherein it really involves a lot of critical thinking. Quick critical thinking, I think, is a good way to put it. Because for a lot of the cases that you end up doing, you go into these competitions, you sit down and you're given the case right there. You're not given the case beforehand. You know nothing about what the problem will be, what the situation is. You're given the case. You have, if you're competing as an individual, 10 or 15 minutes max to read the case, come up with a solution, write down some pointers, and figure out what you want to say. And then after that 10 or 15-minute prep period is done, you go to a judge who is usually some sort of industry professional volunteering their time, and they evaluate you. You give your pitch, you address the solution that is presented in the case study. They ask you a couple questions about your solution and about the situation in general, and they evaluate you based on your performance, the creativeness of your presentation. I mean, that's just a very sort of looking at it in a vacuum. There are team cases where you have a little bit more preparation time and you can do it with two or three people. There are what they have special cases, written cases where you do get some time to prepare beforehand, but you're just presenting your pre-prepared solution to a judge on the day of the competition. There's a lot of different things that they offer, so I think it's very good because there's things for everyone, especially in high school. I think it's interesting because DECA in high school is much more competitive, I would say, than the university branch of DECA.
Really?
It really is, yeah. Because if you look at the high school branch of DECA, there's a couple layers of competitions, right? There's first the regionals competition, which is within your region. You have to go in and compete and then qualify to go to the provincials level of the competition. And then after that, if you place, I think, within the top seven of any case category, you go on to the international level of the competition. And there are written exams throughout there in high school as well for some cases, in addition to the verbal case component. Whereas in university, there's no regionals competition. You go straight to the provincials, or I guess now it's called nationals because they've since rebranded. But you go straight to the nationals level competition and you compete there. And if you want to go to the international conference, you can. You don't have to place a certain amount or a certain height, I guess you could say, to actually qualify. So, yeah, people take it like very, very seriously in high school, and that's not to say they don't in university, but it's just much more inherently competitive in high school, which I found was super interesting coming to university and seeing that sort of dynamic switch.
Hmm. Okay. So when you saw that switch and you got involved in first
Mhm.
year, what capacity was that in? Were you just kind of a general member who was just, participating in case competitions, or like what's the first year structure like for someone involved in DECA?
So I think it's similar to most management clubs and a lot of other clubs at the University of Toronto, where I started out. I actually wanted to apply for an executive position in my first year, and I ended up applying for what's called an associate position. I was an associate of corporate relations, so I was doing the outreach for sponsors, judges for our events, things like that. But an associate position is essentially an introductory executive position. So it's meant for primarily first years to sort of get introduced to what being an executive of a club is like without having the higher level of responsibility that, say, a director or a VP or something like that would have. So it's a great way to get introduced to not just like any specific club that you're interested in, but the club community as a whole. And that's how I started out. So I started out doing corporate relations, like I said, and that eventually switched in my second year. I applied for a director of training role. And what that means for DECA is basically just running our training sessions where we sort of go through the different cases, the aspects of them. We help people practice their presentation skills, communication skills, all of that stuff. So I helped plan the curriculum and do all of that stuff for DECA. And then my third year, vice president of business development, so was responsible for overseeing corporate relations, human resources, and information technology, so responsible primarily for our website. And then
Hmm.
this year I'm the president, one of the co-presidents, I should say, responsible for pretty much everyone at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like with the structure of DECA, as you work your way up, not only are you just necessarily responsible for more people, but there's more sort of portfolios under each umbrella. Like you, instead of just doing one thing, now you've got to learn about multiple different areas. Like you had said, what the IT side of things, the website, corporate relations, and what was the third thing?
Human resources.
Human resources. Yeah. So suddenly you have to be good at three different skill sets that maybe you've not had a lot of practice with before, but I guess there's an element of like learning on the job.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And you really do get thrown into it in the clubs, especially after the summer semester. Like associates do not start until September, October, usually around there. But for every other position, you're starting at the end of the winter semester in the year preceding the academic year that you will actually be doing the club. So you're thrown into it right from the summer, and then especially once September rolls around, it gets very busy with case competitions, training sessions starting, all of this stuff. So you really do need to learn quickly and learn on the fly. But I think it really comes back to having a solid team, whether it be beneath you or around you, right?
Hmm.
Because especially in the vice president of business development role, for example, so long as I had strong directors that were knowledgeable and really understood and were passionate about what they were doing, which I did, right? I was lucky to have that level of a passionate team. It makes my job so much easier, right? Because it's sort of
Hmm.
more being responsible for the general strategic direction of wherever your department or your club is heading. And then the people, the directors and the associates and all of those people are really responsible for a lot of actually carrying out that direction and making sure that work gets done. So as long as you have a strong team around you, which we've always had, and we do now too, it really does make your job a whole lot easier. But yes, definitely, you do learn on the fly and learn stuff as time goes on for sure.
Hmm. So, how many different roles are there in DECA for anybody who wanted to get involved?
That is a great question. There's a lot. Presidents obviously are the top one. Vice presidents, there's vice president of marketing, vice president of business development, and then also a vice president of delegate experience. Usually that role is split into two roles, and I'll get into that a little bit when I sort of say what that department is all about. But going down the list for marketing, there's a director of marketing role, and then in the past we've also had a director of digital marketing, which is responsible for the more social media side of stuff, while the other marketing people are more for the design and sort of brainstorming side of things. So vice president of business development, obviously at the top of that department. And then within that, you have corporate relations, responsible for all of the external outreach, partnerships, sponsors, things of that nature. Human resources, logistical management, scheduling. If we were on campus, it would be responsible for room booking, things like that, all of that good stuff. And then IT is responsible for a lot of the website maintenance. So that's taken a big shift in responsibility this year to being a lot more important,
Oh, I
right?
bet.
Yeah, like in previous years, we have our website. It's more informative than it is functional, right?
Hmm.
Because we don't need a lot of things done on there. But this year, like our entire sign up and payment system for events is all done through the website. So it's taken on a really big role this year. Um, and the last department, I think, is delegate experience, which historically has been split into VP of events and VP of training, but this year they're combined and turned into one. Typically, sometimes as well, they've been referred to in the past as VP of operations, but I digress. They're VP of delegate experience now, and that involves three directors of training, which are responsible for doing our sort of a staple of DECA, which is our weekly training sessions. So those are, like I said, a bit earlier, teaching people about presentation skills, communication skills, going over DECA cases, how to analyze them, how to present an effective solution quickly. They're responsible for making all of the curriculum and all of pretty much everything regarding training for that. They write cases for our case competitions. They really do a lot of work there for sure. Not
Wow.
not to say that other people don't, but they have a heavy workload. I did it myself too, so I know. But yeah, that's a heavy workload. And then the events directors, who are responsible for pretty much the planning and smooth execution of all of our events. And that involves creating the logistics for events, making sure people are scheduled to be doing a specific task, and making sure those people are actually doing those tasks. Um, all of that stuff. I mean, it encompasses a lot of different things in that role, but it's pretty much just making sure the events run smoothly and making sure that we plan them well. Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
that's pretty much everything.
yeah, across the board, it sounds like there's basically you could have so many separate learning experiences in DECA alone. Like
Hmm.
that's like a company with the number of separate roles that exist there. You've
Yep.
got to have people who are doing every single part of what a traditional company might be doing. So that's great that there's so many good learning opportunities there.
Yeah, and that was what was so surprising to me too, coming to university and seeing the dynamic switch from high school to university. Is in high school, you have the president or presidents at the top of the club, and they're pretty much responsible for everything. But you also have maybe a teacher helping you out or something, right?
Yeah.
For the actual logistical planning side of things. But in university, most clubs, it's not just DECA, but most clubs are run literally like an organization. And that was shocking to me when I first came to university. And I thought it was, a bit daunting, but also very cool at the same time. As you really can, just like a company, work your way up the quote unquote corporate ladder and climb up the ranks and do a bunch of different things within just one specific club. It's very cool. Yeah.
I wonder if that is by design or as a consequence of having me as the advisor for clubs that you're forced to figure everything out on your own. So hopefully
Yeah.
the former.
Yeah, I think it's more the first one, right? Like we have so many different events and things that we do on campus that it just makes sense to have a lot of different people. So we get a good breadth of, people with different experience coming in and really honing in their experience on a specific area and using that to our advantage so we can really give value to the club members and then to the UTSC community as a whole. Yeah.
No, for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how it is then that you said you switched majors at some point, and
Mhm.
obviously it sounds like, um, I guess I had always thought for sure that management or DECA was more of a management specific group, but you've switched majors and you're the co-president of DECA. So
Yep.
what major did you switch into, and how did that affect your interactions with DECA, if at all?
Yeah, yeah. I switched from management co-op after my first year into political science and eventually public law as a minor. So I'm much more on the track to hopefully going to law school after university now. And the reason for that, just quickly, I'll sort of say was I don't know. I love management and I love all of the things that it does and the cool things that it sort of entails, but studying it just wasn't for me, right? That's what I found. And so after my first year, I found political science, like I said, and I just dove right into that and liked it. In terms of its effect on DECA, if any, I wouldn't say it's had much of an effect. I think it helped a little bit that I started out in management, so I was exposed to the management clubs more so in my first year, but that's definitely not a determining factor of your involvement in management clubs or your ability to get involved. I think I'm the great example. I always say this to people who are looking to join from other departments of the university, right? Is you don't need to be a management student to get involved in different clubs, right?
Hmm.
Especially for DECA. At its core, we prep people with communication skills, presentation skills, things that are applicable across the board, not just for management jobs, but for any job, right? Outside of university and within university, just practicing skills that are applicable in the classroom and outside. So it really doesn't have an effect, I would say. I would encourage anyone who's interested in whether it be management clubs or different departments of clubs across the campus. If that doesn't match up with the program you're studying, give it a try, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're passionate and you care about what you're doing, that will show through. And that trumps any program requirements that may be sort of expected of the person, quote unquote, right? Whereas in reality, they're not. There are no program expectations. You can do whatever club you want as long as you're passionate about what you're doing and are a help to the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like I think what's really important there is you found value in continuing to be involved in DECA, even if you weren't going to stay in
Mhm.
management.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it to be very useful. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I know that we had chatted pretty recently about DECA was planning on one of its first online case competition events. So how did that
Mhm.
go?
That actually has not happened yet, and we were supposed to be doing it this weekend, but we've actually shifted it now to next semester because of a couple different reasons. Like there was some uncertainty surrounding COVID. We wanted to maintain the competitive aspects of the competition that we're known for, right? And a host of different factors sort of played into that decision. But at the end of the day, we weren't very confident in our ability to give a really good, valuable event this weekend
Yeah.
like we normally do. So we've ended up shifting it to next semester. We are confident that we'll come back better, stronger than ever, and we actually have a lot of different ideas in mind for how we can modify it strategically and functionally to give more value to the students, but also just make it a more attractive event, right? But historically, those case competitions have been great, right? I mean, I remember I don't think I ever participated in one because I was always an executive of DECA, right? But in high school and seeing and hearing from people participating in university, um, case competitions are really valuable, especially the ones that are run at the club level and not the national DECA U level, because they're a lot less high stress, right? Just inherently because they're run at the club level, and they're a good way for people to practice their skills and really
Hmm.
get an idea of what a DECA case is all about before they go into the big nationals competition that happens later on in the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. So I suppose me being wrong about that is good because now that means people have more time to sign up for the competition next semester. So
100%.
if people want to find DECA and find where they can get involved, where's the best place for them to look?
Social media, Instagram specifically, is always the best place. Our handle is at DECA UTSC, so you can definitely take a look on there. We also have our general membership and our event sign up is all done through our website as well, which is decautsc.com. So that's a good place to find information about what DECA is all about, and if you're interested in signing up for events or general membership, you can do that. Yeah, but social media and the website for sure.
Perfect. And so I suppose this is probably not the fourth and is it your final year? Or are you going to be coming back?
I'll be coming back. Yeah, I'll be doing it
Oh,
next year.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. So this, I was going to say this isn't the fourth year you probably expected to have, but maybe you'll get a full normal year next year. Who knows?
I guess we'll see, right?
Yeah.
It's very very different from what I expected for sure this year, and I think that's the same for every student, right? But we're trying to make the best of it, and yeah, I mean the shift to online learning has definitely been, I think, difficult in different ways than traditional learning is, but people are starting to adjust now. I think as the semester goes on, and especially once winter semester rolls around, I think people will be pretty well adjusted to everything. But yeah, I mean it's very different, but I still think it's okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good. It's obviously the transition's been weird for everybody. I mean, it's the
Mhm,
difference between you and me being in a room right now filming this versus filming it over the internet on
exactly.
Zoom and a separate site for recording. So we're all making the best of it.
Yep.
And so because this is also a podcast about student experience and student
Mhm,
life and not just clubs and academics. I
mhm.
also want to bring up the fact that you said to me in our emails that you love gaming on PS4 and I'm an
Yes.
Xbox guy, so I don't want us to fight on this podcast right now,
Oh,
but
yes.
I am curious if you're excited about the PS5 launch because I wonder if that's a thing students pay attention to because I feel like I sort of lost track of gaming a little bit when I was in university and then
Mhm,
as soon as I graduated all of a sudden I was like way back into it.
mhm. Well, in terms of the PS5, I have one pre-ordered, arriving on November
Ready to
12th,
go.
ready to go, hopefully. So I am definitely still in that gaming sphere, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, it's been a bit challenging through university trying to actually have time to do gaming and stuff, especially as the years go on and the courses get harder, the workload gets higher, right? But it's a nice break from everything.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, it is a nice break, and the best thing about it, I'm not a huge single player person, right? I don't love playing games with just single player campaigns, but I play games online, right? So there's a huge social aspect to it where you can talk with your friends, especially not just friends within the city of your university, but a lot of my friends are back home in London, right? So I play a bunch with them all the time, and it's great. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I don't know what it is about the pandemic that sort of me and my friends started getting together in online gaming more than we ever had before, even though we pretty much have the same opportunity to do it like we had before. I don't know why that happened, but it might just
Mhm.
be people like craving more of a connection since day to day we don't see as many people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I was definitely the same. Like, throughout the whole summer, I was gaming all the time, right? It's taken a bit of a backseat now, obviously, with the switch to online schooling and the sort of different and increased workload that has come along with that. But it's still a great thing, and it's a really, really great way to, yeah, stay in touch with people and maintain those long distance, quote unquote, long distance friendships
Right.
that you have from people that are not necessarily in the same city as you. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, I will from there wish you luck with whatever DECA things you are planning this year, and good luck with the path to law school when you're done at U of
Appreciate
T.
it. Yeah, thank you so much.